I do want to start out and apologize. I am going to have to cut this a little short today. Unfortunately, I was supposed to be off work, and my business partner had an issue with his ankle, and so I am at work currently. Closed the store briefly, but nothing will stop the tasting. So we persevere.
Thank
Um,
you.
so Again, welcome everyone. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm excited to taste some sparkling wine from Northeast Italy with you today. The reason that I picked this wine for this tasting is really we it's a wine that we don't see a wine region rather that we don't see that often. Prosecco is well, let me back up a little bit. We'll talk about this wine specifically. So the region of Prosecco is up in the northeast corner in the Veneto, so north of Venice, and it's a mountainous region. It's been producing wine there for hundreds of years. I mean, it's in fact, I think it's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so it's got some tradition, some certainly some heritage, but this part of Italy is really sort of a pinch point for human migration. And so wine grapes started much further south, but they migrated north up through these valleys that would give them access to Switzerland and France, northern Italy. I mean, basically further up into Europe. And so this area has been, because of this migration, this area has been part of the wine tradition for a long time. So within the region, so Prosecco is both a region and a style of wine. It is a sparkling wine that is crafted mostly from a grape called Glera, Glera. And in 2020, we used to be able to find rosé prosecco, and in 2020 they changed the rules because it didn't contain Glera, or it wasn't all Glera, and so rosé prosecco suddenly became just a sparkling rosé from northern Italy. And they've since reversed the rules. So now you do see rosé prosecco again. They decided that was a good thing. But within the region of Prosecco, and we've talked about this before, in a lot of the old world, wine regions are the boundaries of the wine region, the quality standards for that wine region are defined. So if you want to call yourself Prosecco, you have to meet certain standards, and there are areas that are better than others, but the basic standards fall under the DOC. So it's a region of good quality, not the highest, but a very good quality, and it guarantees that you're getting a wine that comes from this region, is made according to standards that the consortio, the governing body of Prosecco has determined are good standards, and so it's really a kind of a good housekeeping seal. The reason that I wanted to do this Prosecco is because this is actually a DOCG, and that final G essentially is a guarantee of quality. This is a Prosecco Superiore, so it's the highest quality that you can find. And it's also a really good value. I mean, it was a good price. The downside to this bottling is we probably will not see it. We get it once or twice a year. I don't know whether we're going to be seeing this again. So that was sort of my motivation. I wanted to do this wine while we had it, because it's quite a tasty wine. Prosecco Prosecco is made in a number of different ways. Some of it is made in a process where the the bubbles are actually created through pressurization of large tanks. So a still wine is made, and then it's essentially carbonated. Um, there is also a process where the wine is actually carbonated through secondary fermentation, and we've talked about the champagne method, where a still wine is made, yeast and sugar is added, a cage is put on, and the bubbles, the yeast consumes the sugar, creates carbon dioxide, and pressurizes the wine. So most Prosecco, and I'm going to say this. I hope I don't. I hope I'm not wrong. Most Prosecco is still made in the Charmat method, where tanks are pressurized. There are some that are doing the traditional method, but I believe this is a Charmat method bubbles. So the bubbles were created after. I mean, not through a secondary fermentation. But so Italy has a lot of I mean, there are several wine growing regions where they produce sparkling wine. Prosecco is probably one of the most famous, and it's both good and bad. There are some great producers. There are definitely some not so great producers. There are times where Prosecco can get a little sweet, and slightly almost even cloying, where you kind of want that sugar to wash off your tongue. But it's I mean, I have customers who will not turn their nose up at Prosecco, but they've had bad examples of it. And that is certainly true. So I would say, if you are one of those, if you've had a bad experience, do know there really is good quality Prosecco out there. It's just, maybe takes a little more effort to track down, but it certainly exists. What else to say about Prosecco? It's a great little starter wine. The Italians, particularly in the north, love their aperitivos. They're kind of their Italian happy hours, and Prosecco is a very nice wine to have at that hour. You can blend in, add in a little bit of what is considered an aperitivo, like Campari or Aperol, which gives it that slightly bitter orange note. And I think we've also talked about this. The Aperol spritz, or the Campari spritz, the Venetian spritz is actually its formal term. Is a great. I mean, it serves a great purpose, because the Italians made this observation a long time ago that just a little bit of bitterness causes we develop a stronger hunger. I mean, it primes the appetite. So having a little glass of Prosecco with some Campari or Aperol in it before dinner is a delightful way to kind of get the party going. So I would say, given, and I do apologize, I want to leave some time for any questions if we have them. And I do apologize for the truncated version today. But let's crack open the bottle, and because I have not opened my bottle, we can kind of talk about sparkling wine. It sounds funny. We always remind people around New Year's, when people are popping bubbles. Maybe people who don't usually pop bubbles are popping bubbles, but it is funny. There are every year injuries as a result of the cork going awry. There's about as much pressure in this bottle as there is in your tire on your car. So it's fairly pressurized. I mean, we want it pressurized simply to maintain the bubbles. If there was any sort of lack of pressure, we would be drinking still wine and wouldn't have to worry about the cork shooting out. But in opening any bottle of sparkling wine, and I don't have one at the moment, but I will use my hand. Generally, you want to have a napkin, a serviette, over the cork to keep it from shooting anywhere. You twist off the cage. Because I don't have the serviette, I'm going to hold on to the cage. The most important thing is holding on to the bottle. So you hold the cork with one hand and you twist the bottle, so that your hand never leaves the cork, because that can that's where people have lost eyes. And I believe even somebody of they're I mean, it had to hit them, it must have had to hit them in the right place, but actually did was killed by an errant cork. So it's kind of crazy that can happen. But so you twist the bottle, and then the French say this. It's probably not as politically correct today as it once was, but it should make the sound of a beautiful woman's sigh. Um, I don't know if that's a beautiful woman's sigh. I don't know what that really is, because it sounds like a beautiful woman burping. But that essentially is what you're looking for, a little burp. You don't want to pop the cork, because that big loud sound is essentially all the bubbles leaving your bottle very quickly. Um, so um, my bottle is probably not as cold as I would have liked it. You generally, when you're having sparkling wine, you want the wine as cold as you can get it, because that temperature will lock in those bubbles, will prevent them from releasing quickly. So mine is a little warm. The mousse, the foam subsided pretty quickly. So yeah, it's a little warm. I wish this were a little cooler. But you do notice, I mean, and now I'm wondering, because the bubbles in this are pretty fine. Um, I still think this is Charmat. Typically, when you see a bottle that has been carbonated through the champagne method, the bubbles are very, very fine, because they've been integrated very well into the liquid. The process of the yeast digesting the sugar and emitting CO2 really integrates. I mean, the very, very fine bubbles, not big and clunky, as typically are found. I mean, lower quality um, sparkling wine, and I'm talking, the $6 to $8 bottles. The bubbles there are, I mean, it's like you open a can of LaCroix. It's very large size bubbles. So when you're ever having sparkling wine, you want to observe the bubbles, and hopefully you want to notice fairly small, very small, tiny bubbles. Yeah, I I very much like this. So really bright acidity, mouth watering. You get kind of some maybe some green and yellow apple. I mean, I'm getting both tart apple and a little bit of more ripe apple. Maybe some pear, some stone fruits, possibly peach, some white flowers. I mean, it's got a really nice nose. For whatever reason, I almost taste like white strawberries, or like a strawberry note to it. But a lot going on, and this is, as I said, the DOCG um, category really. I mean, particularly when you can find a good value. And in Prosecco, Prosecco is something that should really. I mean, I would say an expensive prosecco is probably just over $20, maybe a little more if it's a truly a special. We don't see a lot of stuff that exceeds that maybe $22. But it's a wine that's really meant to serve a purpose. It's not, you wouldn't want to cellar this for decades. You wouldn't want, it's not something that requires a special occasion. Bubbles are something that we should all drink more of. I do believe. They make you happy. That's the only point. You know, the only point of bubbles is to put a smile on your face. That's it. It's not a wine that you contemplate, that you think a lot about. You should just taste it, and you know you're happy. And so this is something that, again, it's the Italians make this as a just kind of an entry, you know, an entree to the entree, the pre-dinner, you know, preparation. I mean, it pairs well. It's also, I like this particular bottling, that, again, if it's a little colder, I was loading this into the fridge, and I pulled from a warmer. I put a bottle in a couple hours ago, and I think I inadvertently grabbed that one, so it's not as chilled. But it does hold a pretty good charge when it's well chilled. So if you're making cocktails, you know, certainly the classic mimosa, delicious. Little Prosecco, some fresh orange juice. The Bellini, white peach juice added to Prosecco. It carries a lot of different things. Now, when you are making a cocktail, much like pouring your bottle, which I failed at, you want to make sure all of the ingredients are very cold, because you know, if you take a warmer liquid and you pour it in a cold glass of bubbles, it will warm. The bubbles will dissipate. You won't end up with a good temperature. So when you are making cocktails with bubbles, definitely just make sure all your ingredients are well chilled. That'll hold the charge.
Steve, let me interrupt just 1 second,
Absolutely.
because while we're talking about temperatures, one of the questions is, what temperature should you serve it at?
I would say, I mean, refrigerator temperature or colder. I mean, if you were in a restaurant, they might even bring you an ice bucket. So it it's not a wine. I mean, there's certain, like, vintage champagne, really fine aged, and I'm talking a champagne with maybe a decade or more of age on it. Um, it's not going to do as, or you're not going to enjoy it as much if it is really cold. The complexities of that wine are not being released. It's remaining trapped in that liquid. Prosecco is not that. Prosecco just, you know, it can stay ice cold. And again, you know, again, if you're not having vintage, if you're not drinking a special bottle, the colder the better. Just simply, if it's muted but it's very cold, you let it warm up. But if it starts warm, it goes flat, and now you've got a different wine. I mean, sparkling wine, once it's been deflated, is less intriguing. Yeah, I would say ideally you want the bottle. I mean, sometimes even I'll take a bottle of sparkling wine out of the fridge, and I'll stick it in the freezer for maybe 10 minutes before even serving it. So just to get it, drop it down maybe into the, you know, 38, 39, just a couple degrees lower than the average refrigerator.
Kathleen just put a question in, a good one. Is there a trick to pouring it? And her question is, so there's not a bunch of foam, or do you want the bunch of foam?
So the answer is sort of a little of both. Yes, because there are certain bottles. I mean, champagne, for example. When wine, when it is fermented, I mean, when the bubbles are created through a secondary fermentation and are really integrated, it actually creates. I mean, they describe it as a mousse. It creates a foam that holds both flavor and aromas, and so the mousse is nice, but you don't want it to foam because it was too warm. So you don't need to avoid the foam, but the traditional way of pouring bubbles is you begin by pouring a little bit in the glass, and then let the bubbles, if there are bubbles, subside, and then you use that to catch the remaining liquid. So once you have, you know, that first little splash in your glass, then you can continue pouring the next one. And it will catch the wine and it foams up a little less. But no, foam is no problem. Again, provided it's not foam, because it's really, I mean, beer. Whenever you're in a restaurant and you order a draft beer and it comes and it's all foam, all all you need to know is that the cooler is not cold enough and the keg is warm. I mean, that's what's happening in your glass of beer. It's foaming too much, and so bars encounter this all the time. They'll do a keg swap, and for whatever reason, the new keg wasn't as cold as the old one, and now the beer is foaming, and when it foams, you lose product. So bars generally like to make sure their beer lines are running at temperature. But no, a little mousse. I mean, it captures some of the aromas and sort of elevates them. Yeah, I love this wine. I mean, like I said, I got a little taste of white strawberry. Can almost smell like pistachios in the background. It's there's a lot going on with this. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions or thoughts about the wine?
Any more questions? And feel free to unmute. It's not a large group, so if you want to just ask a question, unmute and ask it. Oh, Scott did ask by typing in, does the shape of the glass affect things? A flute versus the coupe.
Yeah, so actually that's a great question. And that's one that has been kind of has evolved in the last 10, 15 years. Traditionally we sparkling wine was always served in fairly elegant glasses. Probably the most known glass would be the coupe, sort of that large saucer. The coupe is beautiful in the sense that it it showcases the elegance of the wine. But form follows function, and unfortunately, the coupe does a horrible job at retaining bubbles because it has a very large surface area, and so the bubbles just move up and poof, and they're gone. And now you have a coupe of still wine. So we moved away from the coupe and we went to the flute. And the flute again, elegant. It shows off the beauty of this wine. You can see the bubbles kind of coming off the bottom. In fact, there are a lot of wine glasses where they'll actually etch. They'll scratch the bottom of the glass right there deliberately, because bubbles, the way bubbles work is the CO2 basically finds excuse me, finds imperfections in the glass, and then the CO2 collects, and eventually it forms a bubble, and the bubble becomes large enough to break away from this imperfection, and it floats up hopefully like a string of pearls. So the flute really was like, oh, we'll etch the bottom of the flute and we'll create this beautiful string of pearls coming off the glass. The problem with the flute was, and we've talked about this previously, wine likes to oxidize. It likes to be exposed to air. And if you're dealing with a flute that has maybe a 50-cent piece worth of space, you're really not allowing the wine to open up, and you're just smelling the top of that wine, which is not much. And so about 10, 15 years ago, it started in restaurants, but they worked. Some restaurants decided it was better, particularly those with a very extensive sparkling wine portfolio. They moved more to white wine glasses because their belief is, and I would tend to agree. I mean, the flute looks awesome. The coupe looks beautiful, although I'm less. I like cocktails in my coupes now. but the flute looks beautiful. The problem is it just doesn't really, form follows function. It doesn't do a good job at the function of presenting the wine. So I've moved more toward, my preference probably is more something like a white wine glass. But really glassware is something that, I mean, it's we eat first with we taste first with our eyes, and a beautiful glass makes it better. It just it accentuates that. And
I'm
oh, go
sorry.
ahead.
I know we have time precious, so there's one more question, one that I totally don't understand. Any recommendations on storing a wine bottle if you don't finish the bottle? And I assume he means the sparkling wine bottle.
Yeah. So, actually, and I don't own one myself, but I mean to get one. A lot of my sales reps carry a stopper that, when you're dealing with white wine, or I mean, sorry, when you're dealing with still wine, having a stopper that removes the air is desirable. Unfortunately, with sparkling wine, you want to kind of do the reverse, and so Amazon has these little stoppers. I think they're maybe $5-10. They're fairly inexpensive, but the stopper sits in the bottle. There's a swing arm that kind of locks onto the neck, so it holds the stopper in, and then literally you push air into the wine, because if you increase the pressure in the bottle, then the bubbles aren't going to escape. And so those things are actually really cool. I've liked those very much. Do you have
My
one?
my my picture isn't showing very well because of the background, but yeah, I have a few of them.
Now,
I'm a lover of sparkling wine, so I have 5 of them. And
does
you
it
just
have the
push it
pump on the
down
top?
and then clip it on the edge, and it's great.
Oh, so no, this is an improvement on that. Those are the traditional
Oh, okay.
sparkling wine closures. This one actually has a little pump on the top.
Ah,
And so you actually pump, I mean, unlike the other one, you pump air into the bottle instead of removing it.
well,
And
I'll
it
have to
that
go shopping.
yeah, no, like I said, a lot of my sales reps use them, and they're really wonderful devices, because they'll drag a bottle of sparkling wine around for a day or two, and it stays charged. The bubbles don't dissipate.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's it. That would be my ideal, but Jack's the whatever, the butterfly, the
Yeah.
things that lock on to there. I mean, you do want something that maintains a good seal. Um, Certainly, I mean, a cork probably, if it's not locked in, you might stick it in there, in the evening, and in the morning you go in there and the cork is sitting on the floor of your refrigerator, because the carbon dioxide has pushed it out. But so yeah, the little locking devices are nice. But yeah, if you can find the one that actually injects air, pumps little air into it, those are even better.
Yeah. These are good for know the next day. I usually don't have a bottle of sparkling wine more than a day or two.
Yeah.
But
No,
I'm
I mean,
a lover of
right.
sparkling wine. Despite what I say, I'm not an alcoholic, but I am a lover of sparkling wine.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's
I
on our
I
table a
I'm
lot.
I'm always trying to promote it, because, like I said, I think it makes, it's supposed to make you smile. And we have a tradition of celebrating great events with sparkling wine. A great event can easily be the end of a day. And so, embrace that, celebrate that.
Or on some days, maybe it's needed at the beginning of a day when you know
It
what you're
Well,
facing.
actually, that's the joke. The French invented champagne so that they had something to drink with breakfast, with lunch, with brunch, with happy hour, aperitivo, dinner, and right before bed.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm a great believer in that. In fact, I was going to say, as much as I love serving sparkling wine of any kind as an aperitif, and it's great for that. And as I say to my guests when I serve it in a dinner, I'm serving it because it's the perfect aperitif. It's not too sweet.
mhm.
It's effervescent. It's not going to take away the taste of other things, but the most important thing is it's really pretentious.
Yeah,
So,
right.
you know,
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
really great. But I
Yeah.
love serving sparkling wine with other courses. I find whether
Mhm.
it's this wine, a Prosecco, or a sparkling rosé with spicy dishes in a regular meal, it's a great course wine as well,
Absolutely.
which I think people don't always realize.
Well, the bubbles do a great job at refreshing the palate.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the acid, and again, there is some sweeter styles of prosecco that I'm not as much of a fan of. I like a drier sparkling wine. I like it to kind of almost tickle the palate. But you're right. I mean, you can drink bubbles throughout an entire meal. I mean,
Yeah.
scrambled eggs are spectacular with bubbles.
But yeah,
All the way up to
Indian food
100%.
with the sweeter prosecco is a
Yes.
really nice
Yes.
combination, you know. And if you have a bottle and it's a little too sweet to drink, you know, serve it with a little spicy food for the dinner
Yep.
that night instead, and it'll be great.
That's a great point because the residual level of sugar really, I mean, you can take an off dry Riesling, for example, and have it with a spicy curry. And even though when you had the Riesling before you had the curry and it seemed sweet, you have it with the spicy food and that sweetness just goes away.
Yeah.
It still does its job.
We have a question I have to hear the answer of.
Absolutely.
Joan is curious about using prosecco with vodka martinis.
Hmm. I don't know. Um, I I would say probably as a cocktail. I mean, to me, a martini is pretty much just the spirit and maybe one other thing. The bubbles might well, I don't know. I would have to balance. I would have to balance out the vodka, because the vodka
Oh,
could accentuate
just so
more.
you know, she's blaming this on her cousin.
No, no. I think actually because vodka can accentuate fruit flavors and fruit aromas, and a little splash. But where I'd be concerned is if in smelling it, the vodka came a little too heavy, and it you lost the elegance of the wine. But no, like I said, this is a great wine for cocktails. It holds a good charge. It has complementary flavors. Yeah, it's not so expensive that I mean, I definitely have not seen the utility of using really high end champagne in a mixed cocktail
Yeah.
or a mimosa or something like that. I mean, it's just it'd be like having a Ferrari that you put a snowplow on to clear your driveway. Just there are probably better uses for that Ferrari.
Yeah, it's like using, people are going to disagree with me, but it's like using the most expensive rum you can find with a rum and Coke,
Right,
you know,
exactly.
to me.
Yeah. No, certain cocktails really are about simplicity.
Yeah.
And you don't really need to go much but beyond that to have it work.
I will, one of the things that I do, because I like champagne or sparkling wine cocktails, to Steve's point of chilling it, is I use the old bartender trick of all cocktails. I put, you know, water and ice in my glass first, chill the
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah,
glass,
yeah.
and that'll give your
Yeah.
champagne or your prosecco a little more chill when you put it
Yep.
in.
No, that actually that is a very important bartender trick. You for certain things, you absolutely want to give it a little ice water prior and to get the glass so that it doesn't shock the beverage when it pours in.
Yeah.
Um, Well, I apologize. I'm so sorry that I have to shorten today. Like I said, I was supposed to be off today, but I was not lucky. I was luckier than Jamie, who
Yeah.
he sprained his ankle. And all I've gotten from him was they say they don't have to amputate. So he's not even been helpful in describing what it was. But anyway,
Give him our best,
I
please.
will absolutely do that.
Okay. So
Thank
Steve's going to take off. I'm gonna just continue just for a second because I want to give you your money's worth. We're only, you know, we have another 24 minutes. I'm not gonna talk for 24 minutes.
You will.
Anyway, thank you all.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. Really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Cheers.
Steve.
Yeah. You know, I won't go on. I love this stuff. I'm stuffing my face with a couple contrary things just to, because I believe sparkling wine goes with everything. I'm having the traditional Melba with caviar and chopped onion and chopped egg, but I'm also having it with gefilte fish on matzah. And it's just, I mean, it's just kind of great with anything. The reason I wanted to grab everybody before we take off today is Kathleen is here, and Kathleen and Logan have created the most unbelievable postcard advertising our organization. And like I said, it's a little hard. I'll try to hold it still. The retroactive, and then a little description of some of the things we do on the back. The reason I mention it is we have put them up out at Rock Chalk, but we've had the brilliant idea that the people should have these are real estate agents to give it to new people who are of our age who are moving into town, which is a lot of the people who are buying new homes here. I have some friends at McGrew, and they now have a whole stack of it for all the agents there. But if any of you know any real estate agents or know anybody at an agency that like a stack of these to give out, please let me know. I'm more than glad to provide them to you or provide them directly to the agency or the agent or whatever. I think it's a great way for someone new in town. And more of our new members are new in town and looking for a way to make friends. And this is obviously the ultimate situation here for, I think, a lot of older adults to do a lot of activities and have a lot of fun and meet new people. So if you have any thoughts on that, you know, let me know and I'll be glad to get you some of these. I'm just taking an opportunity to kind of, you know, push the organization here.
Yep.
So
Thank you.
other than that, any other questions or anything we need to go? I'm going to go try I don't drink vodka martinis. I just drink vodka. So I'm going to try it with a little of
Try
my sparkling wine and just think about that. But in case I don't like it, I'm going to do it after we're finished so you don't see me making a face. Other than that, anything else anybody would like to ask or questions or anything like that before we sign off for the evening? I think we pretty much have put a cork in it, so they say.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
Okay. Have a wonderful evening. See you at the next event, whatever you choose to jump into. And I'm heading off for graduation of a granddaughter. So have a great weekend, because that's
All right.
what I'll be going over the weekend.
All right, safe travels.
Thank you. Ciao,
Yeah.
everyone.
Thank you.
All right, see you later.
Bye-bye, Steve.